Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the NSC Wrestling and Gaming Podcast. I am your host, Chris Canfield, a.k.a. Big C. I'm going to talk to you about some NXT. NXT Women's title will be on the line in the headliner for tonight's NXT as champion Kendall Gray defends against Lola Vice in the NXT Underground fight. The MMA style match can only be won by a pin or submission, a format that favors former Bellator MMA star Lola Vice. NXT Women's Speed Champion Ren Sinclair defends her NXT Women's North American Championship against NXT North American Champion Zarya in a champion versus champion match, where if Sinclair wins, she earns a future title shot. In tag team action, Evolve's women's champion Nikita Lyons teams with Carmen Petrovic against Thea Hale and Jada Parker. Natty will be in Lyons and Petrovic's corner as her feud with Parker continues. The NXT Tag Titles will be on the line as the Vanity Projects Ricky Smokes and Brad Baylor defend against NXT North American Champion Miles Bourne and Tavon Heights. That was earned when Bourne defeated Cam Hendricks. And the card is rounded out by E.K. Prosper versus Keanu Carver. In the first match, we have Jada Parker and Thea Hale versus Carmen Petrovic and the Evolve Women's Champion Nikita Lyons. The only question about this match is, are Angel and Berto of AAA's Perros del Mal hanging out to back up Petrovic like they did Bronco Nima? Lyons started the match high-stepping, but it was Parker and Petrovic that actually started wrestling. Parker used Hale as a weapon to lay out Petrovic, but she fought back and tripped Hale just as Lyons tagged in a high kicker. Lyons went for the submission move, but when Hale got out of it, Lyons came in for a double team. Parker didn't like that, though, and a brawl moved to the outside. Inside the ring, Lyons put Hale down with a Pearl River plunge for a 2 count. Hale and Lyons went back and forth, but Lyons was able to keep Hale from getting the tag to Parker. She isolated her in the corner, and Lyons and Petrovic traded fast tags to beat up Hale. Lyons hit Hale with a big right hand for a 2 count, then locked in a chokehold, trying to get her to pass out or submit. Hale's tried to sneak in a crucifix driver, but Lyons countered it. Hale could not get a tag to Parker, with Lyons pulling her back at every attempt. She finally leapt across the ring and got the tag to Parker, who came in and threw elbows, sending Lyons to the outside. Petrovic got an assist from Natty, and Lyons grabbed Parker so she and Petrovic could land a heart attack. Parker and Lyons fought in the ring until Natty got up on the apron. Parker knocked her off and tagged Hale, who dropped Petrovic and made the cover to get the win. After the match, Lyons, Natty, and Petrovic beat up on Parker and Hale. They managed to fight off the trio, sending them scrambling while Hale and Parker celebrated. NXT champion Tony D'Angelo made his way to the ring next. Tony breathed at the camera for a few minutes before responding to the things that had him responded last week, most notably Grayson Waller. D'Angelo said that he will not be stepping stone for Waller to find his way back to the main roster. He then called Waller old news and turned his attention to Cruz Montana formerly known as Mike Santana, calling him to the ring. Before Montana could arrive, Waller cut him off from the balcony that people sometimes from above the wall panel people usually get thrown through. Waller said that anyone who wants a title has got to go through him. D'Angelo called him a bitch, used the phrase panties in a wad, and ran down the history that he and Waller shared. D'Angelo said that Waller is nothing and he needs to be honest with himself. Waller came back to NXT to make himself relevant again. Waller once again referred to the male NXT roster and speculated that D'Angelo lacked the balls. Waller started ranting about talent, tweeting until Cruz Montana showed up. Montana talked from the audience, so all three members of the conversation were at least 40 feet apart. Montana gave Waller props for rattling cages, but he thinks that Waller needs to be put in the work just like he did. Cruz Montana from the block said that he doesn't have a lot of sympathy for Waller because he doesn't know struggle and hasn't proven that he belongs at NXT. Waller ticked. The audience's opinion doesn't matter and said that he's going to piss off and piss on all over Montana's fire. Montana said that Waller only fights for himself and doesn't know what it's like to be held accountable to the people. D'Angelo chimed in and spoke for the viewing audience, saying that none of this matters and that they should go and talk to Stone and make a three-way for Heatwave. The next match we had, Women's Speed Champion Ren Sinclair versus North American Champion Zarya. This is for the Speed Championship title. Zarya got a full entrance for this match, but Sinclair did not. Zarya had a chance to become a double champion here, and Sinclair had a chance to not get killed by Zarya. They started off trading arm drags until Zarya shoved Sinclair into the corner and started throwing bombs. Sinclair managed to knock Zarya's head off the ropes and then hit her with a bulldog. Sinclair sent Zarya into the corner with a head scissor and went to the top, but Zarya pulled her down to the mat and ran her into the ring post. Sinclair rolled away as the clock was ticking down to beyond 3 minutes, and Zarya followed up with a big elbow. Zarya hit a pump kick on the corner and went for the cover, but Sinclair kicked out of that too. Sinclair returned to the ring, stepped in with a back elbow into Zarya as the clock hit 2 minutes. Sinclair started throwing shots and rolled up Zarya for a 2 count. They traded chops with Zarya getting knocked down and hitting a face buster. The clock hit 1 minute as Sinclair ate a high knee. Zarya picked up Sinclair, who rolled through for 2. She suplexed Zarya and went for the cover with 30 seconds left. Sinclair went to the top and hit a crossbody on Zarya, who caught her and drove her through the ropes to the outside. Zarya threw Sinclair back into the ring, but the time had expired, meaning that the Speed Champion still is Ren Sinclair. That ended into a time limit draw. We then had the NXT Tag Championship match with a Vanity Project going against North American Champion Miles Bourne and Tavon Heights. Heights started things off against Baylor, handling him pretty solidly with power slams and a cover. That brought in Bourne, who tried an angle slam. Smoke grabbed the blind tag off of that, and Bourne hit him with a clothesline. Smokes and Baylor started quick tagging in and out to work over Heights, while Jackson Drake and Miles Lockwood watched from the ringside. Heights and Bourne started with a quick tagging, throwing everything they had at Baylor. Baylor managed to get a drop on Bourne, but Bourne came back with a spine buster. Drake assisted Smokes, helping him block a backstabber from Bourne. That turned the tides enough to let Smokes and Baylor isolate Bourne in the corner and beat him up until Baylor tried to go for a cover. Bourne kicked out at a 2. Heights tried to help, but the refs sent him back to his corner, and Baylor put a headlock on Bourne. Baylor did a Rick Rude dance and punched Bourne in the face. Baylor went for the knee, but Bourne's countered it with a roll-up. Baylor kicked out and Smokes tagged in. He hit Baylor's double team on Bourne. Bourne and Baylor traded strikes in the middle of the ring, but Bourne leapt to Heights for a tag. Heights took out Baylor and beat up on Smokes, but he couldn't get a cover. Heights tagged in Bourne for a dropkick powerbomb combo on Baylor, but again, no 3 count. Smokes hit a Meteora on Bourne, and they used the dropkick spinebuster combo, but Heights broke up the count. Bourne tagged in Heights, and they were all over Smokes and Baylor, hitting stereo power slams. Drakes tried to help out, but got himself and Lockwood expelled from the ringside. Bourne took Baylor over the ropes, and Heights leveled Smokes with a massive power slam. He made the cover on Smokes, and Bourne and Heights are the new NXT Tag Team Champions. Miles Bourne is now a 2-belt holder in NXT. We then had E.K. Prosper versus Keanu Carver. If I understand this correctly, Prosper won a match against Carver back in June, and since then Carver has simply hated him for existing. This is the 3rd match between the two over the issue, with Prosper going 2-0. They locked up and Carver countered with a hammerlock into a suplex. Carver charged and Prosper dodged, giving Carver a kick to the head as he went by. Prosper hit a moonsault from the top rope and then locked Carver in a headlock. Prosper drop-kicked Carver, then ran the ropes, which gave Carver a chance to drop-kick Prosper. Prosper added a 3rd drop-kick, sending Carver to the outside. Prosper jumped at him. Carver caught him, then went for the slam on the table. Carver hit Booker instead and apologized profusely. That let Prosper dive onto Carver from the ring apron. Back in the ring, Carver caught Prosper off a springboard cutter attempt. He power slammed him and covered Prosper for a 2 count. Carver kicked Prosper while he was down and then suplexed him across the ring. Carver landed a backbreaker and then stretched Prosper over his knee. Prosper started fighting back, but Carver got him down with a quick shot. Prosper came back with something of a cutter, but Carver kicked out and then hit him with a comeback with a power slam. Prosper came back off of that with a series of shots and a super kick. Finally picking up some momentum, Prosper hit a springboard moonsault and a DDT, and then went to the top for a blockbuster. He made the cover, but Carver kicked out at 2. Carver and Prosper traded shots in the center of the ring until Carver got a kind of German suplex for a 2 count. Carver then mercilessly powerbombed Prosper, but Prosper kicked out at 2. Realizing that they had needed time to take the ropes off for the Underground match, Carver went for a pop-up powerbomb, but Prosper countered it into a kick, followed by a shining wizard. Carver dodged a moonsault, but Prosper saw it coming and rolled him up in a small package to get the win. We then had the NXT Women's Championship Underground match. as champion Kendall Gray win against Lola Vice. In an underground match, which really isn't underground, but it would be awesome if it was. There are no ropes on the ring and is surrounded by lumberjacks. There are no pinfalls, DQs, or countouts, and the match can only end via knockout, ref stoppage, technical knockout, or submission. Vice started the match off with some kicks, pushing Gray around the ring. Gray got the first takedown, but Vice countered it to a headlock attempt. Gray broke out and tried to put an ankle lock on, but Vice rolled her to the outside. Gray sent Vice into the announce table, but Vice grabbed a face lock and Gray shoved her back into the steel steps. Gray went to kick Vice from the apron, but Vice grabbed her legs and pulled her face first into the step. Gray started bleeding from the ear, but the ref let the match continue. Gray tried to stand but fell over. The ref called for medical. Gray insisted that she was okay, but medical was concerned about the bleeding from the ear. More doctors were called for as Vice paced the ring. They wiped the blood from Gray's ear, and she looked ahead with a 1,000-yard stare. They bandaged Gray's head up and snapped her back into reality. Medical led her back into the ring, where she stumbled and fell again. Vice threw some kicks, and Gray tried to respond with strikes, but she couldn't get herself right. Vice hit her with a suplex, and Gray grabbed her from the mat with one of her own. Gray seemed to be shaking things off, delivering 4 German suplexes and dropping her straps. Vice hit Gray with a knee and sent her spilling to the outside. Vice put her back into the ring and threw some kicks, but Gray caught one and countered it into an ankle lock. Vice was able to reverse it into one of her own. Gray fought out of it, and they traded kicks and punches while Gray got into her bearings correct. Vice hit her with a back fist, but Gray got thrown back into the ring by Hank and Tank and landed on Vice in a perfect position for a sleeper hold. Gray transitioned into an armbar. Vice threw another back fist, but caught the ref by mistake. She put Gray into a body scissors, but there was no referee. Gray passed out, but no one was there to end the match. When Ren Sinclair woke up Kendall Gray, she hit a super kick on Vice. Vice threw one of her own but missed and ended up putting Vice into the armbar. The ref woke up just in time to see Vice tap, giving the victory to Gray. Kendall Gray retained her title, and after the match, Gray and Vice embraced as they show each other respect as the show ended. And that's it, folks. This is Chris Canfield, a.k.a. Big C, for the NSC Wrestling and Gaming Podcast, talking about NXT. Peace.